Unforgivable, huh?
Strong.
Unforgivable. Yeah, I don't know what that means. And I do, again, when I say in retrospect, we should have this, that, the other, I mean, we asked Steve just about every single possible angle we could think of with regard to Steph Curry's reaction and what Draymond Green did. But it's an interesting point. It's a very, very big word. And I'm always, the reason I really got to thinking about this more, in addition to just, listening to Steiny and Goo and having the conversation.
And us going viral.
Well, did we? I don't even know this.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened?
First Take did a whole 12-minute segment on it, and during their 12-minute segment, the graphic that they have underneath said, courtesy of 95.7 The Game.
Got it. Okay.
So our station got national run on what's turned out to be one of the biggest topics, not only here locally, but nationwide. And it's because of the Draymond factor, but maybe more importantly, the Steph Curry part of it, the Steph Curry reaction to the Draymond outburst. So those two things combined, Kendrick, Stephen A., the gang, they did a full 12 and a half minutes, and our station was prominently featured therein.
I was right now years old when I learned of that.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been on the phone with the IRS for about the entire morning.
I'm jealous.
Nobody did anything bad.
Yeah. My 30 minutes with the DMV seems like walk in the park.
Clerical stuff. You'd send a message to the IRS and they get to it within the next 5.5 years.
That's fair.
So anyway, whatever. I don't need to go down that rabbit hole. I've been there enough already today. But yeah, it is. The more I've thought about it, it's a big word, and it's not just, okay, so what does that mean? But I am always interested. I feel like we talk about this on the show quite a bit because I want everybody listening to understand a little bit more about the way the media process works for big-time sports celebrities. They choose their words very carefully. Steve was not bombarded by Lucas and it was like, oh my God, I didn't know that I was going on 95.7 The Game at 3 o'clock. I had no idea. No, after an event like that, I guarantee it's a conversation with the great Raymond Ritter or whoever in the Warriors organization and a night of sleep and time to think about it and what they want to say and how they want to package whatever it is that they want to say to the public, because they are celebrities. Their organization and their people, they are massive celebrities. They have PR people for a reason. And so Steve didn't just say that word. Steve knew that question was going to be very, very early in the process, and that word was selected. So what does that mean? Unforgivable.
It either means everything or it means nothing, and it's up to Mike Dunleavy, Joe Lacob, Steve Kerr, really to make that decision in the offseason. Because one thing about Steve Kerr, not only does he know that we're going to interview him at a certain time, and he basically sets the time. Just to give the listeners a little bit more of a look behind, we contact Raymond Ritter, the excellent VP of communications, and he and Steve work together to figure out what works for Steve. Then we get the word back on when they can do it. And if it works for us, P.S., it works for us.
It works for us.
Then we do it at that time. So Steve comes in fully aware of the time and what's going to be asked. And the other thing about Steve Kerr, and I'm sure everybody knows this by now, the words that he uses are measured and they're words that he has thought about. He doesn't get caught off the cuff. He doesn't get caught out of pocket. He doesn't get caught in an emotional state where he says things that he will come back and regret. That's not part of Steve Kerr's repertoire.
I got to stop using this comparison, but it keeps coming up. Go back to Kyle Shanahan with what he said about Steve Wilkes after the Vikings game. Like that, the reason we made such a big deal about that is because Kyle had time, right? This was not like in the heat of the moment. You had a night's sleep, you come back, you fly to a different city, you talk to your PR people, you talk to your coaches, your players, and then you have a stack of papers in your hand, and you head on over to the podium and they turn the mic on. And he said, Steve knows he messed up. And I was like, man, that's a big deal. He chose to say that publicly. So if Steve Kerr chose to say the word unforgivable in public, it would suggest that to some degree, in some sort of way, shape, or form, that's the word that describes how the Warriors are feeling right now. And so what does that mean? You know, Steph Curry walks off the floor. There's Draymond with his little night-night, and they give each other, they dap it up, and they give each other a hug. But Steph also, there are no words shared there. It's just a hug, and I keep walking. And that happens sometimes. Somebody that you're furious with walks up and wants to give you a high five or a hug. And it's difficult as a human being sometimes to look that other person in the eye and be like, don't come near me. I'm not there.
Right.
I don't want to do that. So usually you just do it.
And Steph is very well aware that every single thing he does outside of his compound down there in the 408.
Atherton.
Yes, Thank you, Atherton. I knew it wasn't Los Altos.
It might still be 650, but anyway, go ahead.
Either way, he knows that everything he does outside of his house is going to be seen, recorded, scrutinized, captured, everything.
Totally.
So if he sees Draymond waiting for him, even if the last thing he wants to do is dap him up, and I'm not saying that's it, but he's going to do that no matter what anyway.
Of course. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. So it's an interesting thought process with regard to whether or not there is some sort of an effort in the offseason. Because let's do breadcrumbs. Can we do breadcrumbs for a second?
I like breadcrumbs radio.
Let's do breadcrumbs.
Sprinkle.
Okay. You are suspended indefinitely.
Yep.
The team says that this is inexcusable and it can't happen. And Draymond Green says it can't happen. And I've got to go get help. And the league says you've got to go get help. And Steve Kerr says we're going to let Draymond have his space. And Draymond says he's going to let the Warriors have their space. Okay. Then he comes back. And everyone's like, all right, it's got to be different now. And for a while it is. And even Steve Kerr, remember, it was only 2 weeks ago that he said directly to us, Draymond's been unbelievable. He has been fantastic. And we are very, very proud of the progress that Draymond has made. Then you get to that night. And maybe it had been building a little bit, right? There was Memphis the week before, whatever. There's been stuff.
Yep.
But nothing serious.
Miami the night before.
Sure. There'd been stuff. There'd been like, okay, the frustration is there. You can see the emotion. And then there's the other night in Orlando. And look at the reactions. Like pair Steve Kerr saying unforgivable with Steph Curry having his eyes well up on the court, having to be consoled by his head coach, having to pull his jersey over his own face. Then he waits 24 hours. He goes to social media, Steph Curry, and puts pictures of the game and the victory up. None of them including Draymond Green. Obviously, he was barely in the game. And writes, I'll never take these things for granted. Which did suggest to me that he felt that Draymond Green the night before had taken that thing for granted. So put that all together. Is it crazy to not suggest, but wonder? Is it crazy to wonder if the Warriors reached their breaking point 2 nights ago?
No, it's not. It's not crazy to think that. And if you want to go even further with the breadcrumbs trail all the way back to 2016 and beyond. All the things that have happened in and around with and by Draymond Green, it's exhausting. And, you look at Bob Myers is no longer a part of this organization. And is it because Draymond Green? Of course not. But the stress of the job increases when you have to navigate some of the things that Draymond Green does. And this is not to make it a cause and effect relationship between Bob's departure and Draymond Green, but having Draymond on your team as a coach, a GM, an owner, a teammate, it is more stressful than, say, having Klay Thompson on there.
Yes.
Or even having Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Steph Curry brings a certain amount of attention and media responsibilities and scrutiny and paparazzi and the rest of it, but that's all for the most part positive distractions and positive work.
And think about this like a relationship. Let's say the Warriors did. I don't know that they did, but let's say Steve Kerr and Steph Curry came to the realization on Wednesday night, can't trust them. We can't do it. We're done. So you ever like make the decision that a relationship is over, but you still go on a few more dates? You're like, it's Christmas time. Probably shouldn't do it now. Let's maybe go on a few more dates. Or, this person I'm going to break up with, gosh, they just lost somebody in their life just passed away, or they lost their job.
Right.
Like, oh, geez, let's not do it now. We'll do this for another month. We'll do this for another 2 months, whatever. But you've already decided you're moving on. Maybe that's the Warriors.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the Warriors right now. Like they've got a play-in spot to go secure, so they're not going to do it now. Maybe they did. Maybe they decided the other night that that's it.
Well,
I don't know that.
It's a long way, though, from, let's just say, if you make that decision that night to actually having the breakup come to pass. This is not football where you can just, cut a guy and chop, and what's the dead cap hit and we're moving on. And it's not baseball where you can just DFA a guy.
Right.
This is $78 million and 3 years of a commitment, and this is a forever Warriors. This is one of your all-time greatest players. So
he's a legend.
He's a legend. And I don't think that he is statue-worthy, but I'm very tight with my statues. I think there's only one statue guy. We can get into that in the offseason and on a slow day. But no matter what he is, no one will ever wear 23 again for the Golden State Warriors. We know that. His number gets retired. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's a legendary Warrior. So when you do break up with him, if you do, it's got to be done in a certain way.
Complicated.
You can't just ship him to Charlotte.
It is complicated.
For 5 second-round picks in a bag.